Evening, beautiful ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Ghana Toastmasters Leadership Dialogues. I'm very excited today because I've been looking forward to this day for the last 3 or 4 months. Leadership is something I'm very passionate about, and I've put together a panel of experienced leaders who are also as passionate about leadership as I am. My name is Papa Arkest, for those of you who don't know me. And I'm currently the division director for Toastmasters Ghana. We're an organization that builds leaders and communicators, and we believe that in doing so, we can change the world. Now, today I have some amazing people with me. First and foremost, I'm going to introduce Daniel Ni Kwekumasaki, who's the managing director for EcoBank Ghana and regional executive Anglophone West Africa region. He's responsible for providing strategic leadership to meet business goals and objectives across 5 countries in the West African sub-region. Prior to his current role, Mr. Saki served as the managing director for EcoBank Zimbabwe and cluster head for the Southern African Development Community, comprising Zimbabwe, Zambia, Malawi, Mozambique, and Democratic Republic of Congo. Other positions he has occupied include Managing Director of EcoBank Rwanda and Deputy Risk Manager of the EcoBank Group. With a wealth of experience, Daniel is an advocate of change and an ardent believer of inclusion. He supports the empowerment of young people and the fact that they should have a voice and be part of the drive for generational actions for change that will unlock their potential and positively impact their future. He enjoys football and is interested in initiatives that impact the vulnerable. Mr. Saki holds a master's degree in business administration with specialization in international banking and finance from University of Birmingham, UK, and a Bachelor of Science degree in administration from the University of Ghana. His most recent awards have been Outstanding Managing Director, Ghana Entrepreneur and Corporate Executive Awards, CEO of the Year, Ghana Business Awards, Ghana's Most Respected CEOs, that's from the Ghana Industry CEO Award, and Top 20 Financial Leaders, Ghana Finance Innovation Awards. Mr. Saki, you are warmly welcome. Wonderful.
Am I the one you were introducing?
Yes, sir. You were the one I was introducing.
I don't know who is feeding you with all these.
I'm telling you, you have a solid team. Moving on from the banking sector to the public service, we have Engineer Godwin J. Brock, who is the current Chief Director of the Office of the Head of Civil Service. He's a seasoned engineer and administrator with 35 years experience. He graduated from University of Science and Technology in 1984 and obtained his graduate degree in engineering management from Cornell University in 2000. He has a diploma in construction site management from the Institute of Builders, and he's a certified public-private partnership specialist. He's a fellow of the Ghana Institute of Engineering, and he has occupied various senior management positions in the road sector at various times, from Director of Urban Roads in 1995 to various positions in the Ministry of Roads and Highways. He was a Director of Administration, Director for Research, Statistics, and Information Management, and Director for Policy and Planning in the Ministry of Roads and Highways for the period spanning 2001 to 2015. He was appointed Chief Director of the Ministry of Roads and Highways in 2015. During his directorship at the Department of Urban Roads, he directly supervised and was responsible for numerous key projects in Accra, Sekondi, Takoradi, Tema, and Kumasi. Some of the projects include the construction of the Kanda Highway and the Kanda Highway Bridge. That's the Kentucky-Teria Bridge. The Akweje Interchange, construction of dual carriageways of the Obasanjo Highway, Liberation Road, the Independence Avenue, the Kwame Nkrumah Avenue, and the Kojo Thompson roads, and their development into a one-way system, to mention a few. He also led in the establishment of the urban roads units in Tamale and Sekondi, Takoradi. He also worked on or directly supervised for the Ministry of Roads and Highways, the development of transport sector indicator and database, a compilation of statistics for all modes of transport, the National Transport Household Surveys, the revision of intensity, duration, frequency of rainfall data and graphs, a design guide for drainage structures. He was also a member of a team of engineers who developed the Road Network Evaluation Tool, RONET, for the World Bank. He has been involved in the training of public sector staff in PPP in Ghana, Liberia, and Tanzania. He was involved in the development of the PPP regulations for Liberia. He has served on the board of the Road Safety Commission, the board of the Ghana Railroad Development Authority, and was a secretary to the Road Fund Board. He was reposted to the office of the head of civil service in 2018 and is currently working as the head of civil service to implement various reforms in civil service. Welcome, Engineer Godwin Brock. Your mic is on mute.
Thank you very much, Papa Akis.
Thank you. Good seeing you. Yes. Next, we have Rosie Finn, who is an award-winning business and change leader with over a decade's executive level experience, building and transforming organizations across Africa, the United States, and the Caribbean. She has a wealth of experience in the technology, financial services, consulting, and insurance industries. She's amongst Ghana's marketing elite, having held the role of chief marketing officer at 3 major telecom companies and being voted in 2017 as one of West Africa's top marketing and communications professional at the Marketing World Awards. Rosie is currently the chief executive officer of Busy Internet, a leading internet service provider in Ghana. She brings to Busy expertise in areas such as marketing, customer experience, and branding, and brand management, honed at multinational organizations, mainly Airtel, well now Airtel Tigo, and Millicom International Cellular, which was Tigo. Rosie also played a key role in the successful launch of Surfline Communications, Ghana's first and Africa's largest 4G LTE provider. Earlier in her career, she worked in the consulting financial services industry in New York with Booz & Company, JP Morgan, and Goldman Sachs. She is passionate about unlocking the potential of African youth and women. She has served on the advisory board of Sponsors for Educational Opportunity, SEO, an organization that provides superior educational and career programs to promising youth, and spends a lot of time mentoring students within the SEO organization. She is an advocate for women in STEM, and in 2020 was named one of the 30 top women in STEM by the STEM Woman Project. Rosie is a member of the Archbishop Tutu Fellowship Program, a program focused on identifying and nurturing and equipping Africa's elite future leaders with tools to address Africa's challenges. She holds an MBA from the Harvard Business School and a BA Honors in Computer Science and Mathematics from Smith College, Massachusetts, USA. Welcome, Rosie Finn.
Thank you, thank you. I want to ask how I am the only woman on this panel.
A strong woman. And last but not least, we have Moses, who is the current director for Emerging Public Leaders of Ghana, EPL Ghana, a competitive public service leadership fellowship program that recruits and places high-performing African university graduates into the government through a 2-year fellowship program. Moses is also managing consultant of leaders and mentors and provides consulting services to businesses and individuals. Moses is a trainer, coach, facilitator, and mentor, and has expertise in leadership development, corporate training, and soft skills, building winning teams, strategy formulation, and aligning teams behind their vision and values, among others. He's a member of the Association of Coaching Practitioners Ghana. He's also an IFC certified professional trainer and was a mentor with the Cherie Blair Foundation for Women Entrepreneurs in 2016 to 18. Moses' previous work experience included managing a division of Unilever Ghana, managing Stratcom Africa as COO, and managing the consumer and retail banking divisions of Intercontinental Bank Ghana and later Access Bank Ghana. Moses holds a degree in economics and an executive MBA and a graduate diploma in advanced marketing from the Institute of Marketing Management, South Africa. With a certificate in company directorship, he uses his expertise to impact the performance of the boards on which he sits. Relevance he has a lot of relevant experiences that also go with this. So thank you, Mr. Kofi.
Thank you very much, Papa. Thank you.
Now, if anybody wondered why these 4 key people are the ones to open this series, this Toastmasters Leadership Series, which is seeking to build leadership culture in Ghana, now your answers, I'm sure you've gotten your answers, because the wealth of experience alone can make an entire movie. I'd like to commend Mr. Dan Saki, because even though I love all my panelists, he's the only one that currently has a Toastmasters club in his organization. So I'll give him props for that. And I hope that the next time I engage the rest of you, you will all have Toastmasters clubs in your organization. Rosie is smiling and nodding, which means it will happen. Don't worry, Engineer Brock, I'll come and talk to you about it. We need to set up a Toastmasters club in all the organizations.
Very
Wonderful.
well. Very well.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Kofi, let me put you on the hot seat first. Can you tell us about your story and your journey into leadership?
That's a bit of a difficult one. What I can tell you is this. I was born into a family that believed in education. And so my family tried as much as they could to give me the best of education that they could afford. And so I was privileged to go through the traditional system and then come out of university sometime in 1989 with a degree in economics. Now, when I moved out into the work environment, in fact, my first experience was in the civil service, but it was for a very short stint. Thereafter, I had opportunity to work in Unilever Ghana. And I think to a very large extent, my experience in Unilever Ghana has made me, if you like, who I am. But I cannot restrict it to only the journey in Unilever, because my total being today is actually accumulation of all the experiences and exposures I've had right through life to now. And I am a student of leadership. That's what I prefer to call myself. And so every step of the way, I have learned. I open myself up to learn through every single experience I get, through every single job opportunity I get, through every challenge that I get. And so today, I love to grow the people around me because I was grown. And so I love to grow the people around me and to add value to their lives, to the extent that people look back and refer to probably the experience or the opportunities they had working with me to say that has gone a long way to actually push them to where they are. So you can call me a student of leadership because I am still learning, and I'm hoping to be not just a student, but also to be a very good a leader by example. So that is what I try to do. I learn and I practice what I learn on a regular basis.
Interesting. Rosie, the same question to you.
Sure, Papa, and thanks again for putting this panel together. So this question actually takes me back to that popular question people ask of whether leaders are born or leaders are made. And as I think about that, I would say I've always had a knack for leadership. I think about primary school or high school where I was a prefect when I was at SOS Herman Minor. Entertainment prefect, and to anybody who knows me, there's no surprise there that I was entertainment prefect. I was also the captain of the basketball team. Fast forward to my days in college, I attended college in the US, a small liberal arts college called Smith, where I held many leadership positions, including being the head resident of my dorm. And moving on to business school was the same thing. So if I think about my leadership journey, I think a lot of it was more innate. However, as I got into the working world, I started out my career in the financial services and consulting firms in the US. That's where it became more of a learning experience and taking courses and doing more reading to ensure that I honed my leadership skills. Coming back to Ghana about 10 years ago, my first experience working in Ghana was at Tigo. And this was back in 2009. And I found myself taken on more responsibilities that were not necessarily related to my main work. So I was in the marketing department, but if there was, for example, a group of people organizing an interdepartmental football game, for example, you'd find me involved in helping put such an activity together. So all of these things, I think, have gone a long way in putting my leadership skills together. And I'll say I can summarize them in two main factors as what has really helped me drive my leadership skills. And I think the first would be taking calculated risks. So back in Tigo, I left a very comfortable role at Tigo to join Surfline, which was a completely unknown startup at that point. And I believe that as a leader, you need to step out of your comfort zone once in a while and seek experiences and opportunities that will challenge you and that will enable you hone your leadership skills. I think the second factor that was important for me as well was this need to continuously learn and develop. And I think Moses referred to that as well. You know, the need to enhance your skill set is something that never ends. And throughout my career, I've tried to do that. So moving from Surfline and then joining Airtel was one reason why I did that. I'd always been in a career in marketing, and I went to Airtel to actually work in customer experience. And this was purposeful because I wanted to expand my skill set and also become more commercially astute. So if I think about all of these experiences that I've had, I think that's what has led me to where I am today at Busy. But that need and desire to continue to grow, to continue to learn, and to hone my leadership skills is something that I continue to seek out. And these opportunities are things that I believe are important if you're considering how to grow in any organization and to become a more astute leader. You have to look at ways of looking for calculated risks to take that will help you hone your skills. And that desire to continue to learn and develop is something that I think is absolutely key. So that kind of summarizes the leadership journey and my story to date.
So key nuggets: personal growth and taking calculated risks. Very interesting. Engineer Brock, were you born a leader or were you made a leader? And if you were made a leader, how were you made? If you were born a leader, what did you inherit?
Thank you, Papa. I think sometimes, you know, there's a little bit of both. People do have some innate skills which they bring to the table. And of course, I believe that in order to develop it further, you need to grow. You need to take that journey, which would help you to grow your leadership skills. I mean, I can look back from, you know, secondary school where, you know, you're taking up senior prefect position all the way to, you know, coming out of university in 1984. And the journey is being, I would say that, you know, you would have to understand that there are pitfalls as you go. And you'd have to learn and evaluate what positions you take after all those experiences. From 1984, going to work in a place in Elubu, you know, where you have to be taught by people that you thought or you think would have lower skills than you. You come out of university, you think you're a graduate, but when you go out into the field, those who teach you are technicians. And you have to have that humility to learn from them. So learning is, and I agree with my two other panelists, that learning is very paramount. You have to learn throughout the journey. And in doing so, also, you have to understand that you have to learn to take initiatives. The status quo cannot always be the same. You have to develop new things. You would have to look forward to bringing people along with you to grow a vision that you have. And right through my journey through public service and in the various positions that I've had to start some new things all by myself. But putting a team together and helping them grow, helping them to understand where you want to go, where you want to get to, and bringing them along with you it's been one key thing that I've learned, that you can't make it alone. A leader has to have followers, and you have to learn to develop your followers to come along with you. So over the past 34 years through public service, I think one of the key things has always been the learning mindset and trying to bring people along with you, developing a team which can support support and get along the same journey with you all through has been my key thing. So really learning and having people to come along with you, a human-centered approach to bring along a team is what I think has led me through this journey. And I still continue to learn. In the public service, you have great opportunities to move from one place to the other. Certain places would be very new to you, but you still have to go along. And how do you get there if you're not prepared to learn? You get there, and the people who are already working in those places would be your learning, stepping stones. And they may not be directors. They may be people at the lower level. But if you are humble, you want to work along with them, you want to grow with them, you have that opportunity to bring them along with you. So I think that's been the key for me. Learning, bringing people along, and letting them have the opportunity to grow as well.
Thank you. So staying humble, continuously learning, and making sure that you're developing the people around you and you're bringing them along. Key nuggets. Very interesting. Mr. Dansaki, what defines you as a leader? And what are the keys to your success?
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure what defines me. Probably, and I also typically don't like talking about my leadership journey, because I believe that everybody has a unique path to leadership. But along each unique path, there are common nuggets that we can pick. And if I go back to some of my colleague panelists who have spoken, well, I wouldn't say that in school I had that knack. If anything at all, I think one of the things I always wonder, or my colleagues tell me, that they wonder how I managed to breeze through school quietly without being noticed. So I would probably say that I have a knack for avoiding controversy and trying to stay quiet. But I believe that even within that space, there are things you pick up as you go along. And those things that you pick up eventually become the building blocks for you as you start the real journey into leadership. And I don't know, somebody smuggled some of the things I've done in the past to you. I did not set out to say probably I want to be a banker, but I believe that the key thing is that I was alive to opportunities and able to seize the opportunities when they come along. And I'll probably just use a couple of examples. When I joined the bank, I looked at the bank and said, where are the opportunities for growth? And I decided to focus on a particular area. There were opportunities for moves into other more glamorous areas. And I think that we were about 8 in the department who had a choice of moving into other more glamorous roles. I chose a less glamorous role. And that rather was to leave me more exposed, in the sense that then I was a bit more visible. So in an attempt to avoid the glamour and the visibility, I actually ran into more problems with increased visibility. And I think that started to form my character. One of the things I tried to do very early is also in looking around me, what are the opportunities? And I realized that an opportunity to learn French will not be a bad thing, but it didn't come just out of the blue. One day my boss just came to the office and said, well, you have to go to Burkina Faso for a review. And I didn't speak a word of French. So I said, no, it's not possible. He said, well, that's your problem. The next day he gave me a dictionary. He put it on my desk, a French-English dictionary, and said, well, that's it. Go and see the travel agency. They'll give you a ticket and then you're on the flight to Burkina. I spent, one miserable week trying to review a language I never understood. So by the end of the day, I had not even read one page the whole day because I had to refer to the dictionary each step of the way. But what was important was that by the second day, I'd been able to start piecing words together. That mission was a complete failure for me. But what I gained out of it was an increased determination to actually now master this thing that I'd failed at. So I came back with a renewed determination. I'm going to learn French, started my French classes, took it serious, and with a bit of help along the way, managed to grab bits and pieces of it. That was the basis for one of the expanded roles I had in the bank, where I had to start looking after a couple of Francophone countries. And looking after them means reviewing their credits and other things. And that even gave me a greater impetus because on a daily basis, I was now becoming familiar with words that I didn't know, things I didn't understand, but each step was a learning experience for me. And that also opened the door for my first move to the head office, French-speaking country, and then my subsequent move to Rwanda, which was also largely French by then. So this little knack of picking up things and looking at opportunities around you and preparing yourself for it becomes one of the basic building blocks for me. So whilst I can't answer and say, well, was it born or are they made? But I think that each of us has innate qualities that can be harnessed. And if we prepare ourselves for that journey, at the right time, when the opportunity comes, we will seize it. The challenge is if we start looking for things that are not there, you might not probably realize that opportunities are around you. So for me, it is to say, what are the opportunities? How do I prepare myself? Okay, but in all this, there are two key things I take. And I like to look at culture, okay, that to understand where you are, what is the culture of that organization which you are? And for most people, culture is what? How do we do things? This is the EcoBank way. This is the Toastmasters way. I'm sure you have the Toastmasters way of doing things.
Absolutely.
So that then becomes the building blocks for the culture, and for those who are into football, they will tell you that this is the Liverpool way or this is the Barca way, because you can predict with certainty that this is what this person is going to do because that is the adopted way of doing it. So culture for me is very key in trying to understand your environment and how then that influences what you do going forward. So if you look at an organization, what is the DNA of the organization? That DNA will tell you what is encouraged by the organization, what is discouraged, what can you do, what can't you do, what is accepted and what is not accepted. And this together then fuses into the culture and will influence how one evolves. The second nugget for me there is change. That change is constant. Change is constant. And wherever you find yourself, you will not be standing still. So the situation is to be able to adapt to each changing circumstance and use that as further building blocks for journey. And along the line, keep learning, because each of these experiences I had mentioned were learning blocks for me. So one of the nuggets I pick is that constantly learning every day, even from the lowest person in the organization. And this is me, this is where I am. Thank you.
Wonderful. So it sounds to me like you fell into we say, are you born, are you made? But it sounds like in your case, you fell into leadership. You were fortunate to have a hard boss who basically pushed you. Learn French, which is also important. I like the fact that you talked about culture, which we'll go into in depth later, and study the DNA of the culture. So I'm going to extrapolate this later to Ghanaian context and see how it goes. And definitely develop yourself and also adapt. Change is very important. If you can adapt, that's good. So very good nuggets. So let me quickly ask this follow-up question. So based on everything you've said, give me 3 key attributes of a leader, of an effective leader.
What would you say are the 3 attributes? Or you would want me to give you?
What would I want you to give me?
Okay,
Tell me something I don't know.
I think you know all of. I think the key thing is that the leader should be able to demonstrate that he's not afraid to go to battle with the team. So you should walk the talk.
Okay.
You cannot be preaching something and doing something else.
Okay.
So the first thing for me is to be able to walk the talk. The second thing is the ability to take ownership. And when I say take ownership, as a leader, you are responsible, both for the success and the failures. So when the success comes, we smile about it. So also do when the failures come, we have to be bold enough, accept it, build on it. So walk the talk, be able to hold people accountable and hold yourself accountable. And the third one is to be able to empower people, because you can't be a leader in a vacuum. You cannot be a leader in the vacuum. And you are as good as the team around you. So one of the key things is to be able to identify what you need to succeed, who you need in that partnership for success, and how you prepare the people around you to move towards the same goal. So 3 things for me: be able to walk the talk, be able to hold yourself accountable or take ownership, and then the third one is to be able to build a team around you and empower them to deliver.
Very exciting answers. Whoa, walk the talk, ownership, and empower the people around you. I like it. It almost sounds as if we had a conversation before this, because you're saying all the things that I want to hear. Lovely. Okay. Rosie.
Yes,
I almost
sir.
called you with with your house name. Sometimes, I forget that, yeah.
This is a professional setting.
You see, nobody knows you're my sister, so yeah. Anyway, you have a question here. So let me ask you the question that the person is asking. They said, how would you describe your leadership style? And do you think your gender has played a role in that? How would you describe your leadership style, and has your gender played a role in that?
So my leadership style that I have, my natural leadership style is more democratic. And it's something I have realized over many years of working. So one of the things that I benefited from quite a lot when I was at TIGO and in my career poster was a lot of leadership classes that, they'll take you through the psychometric test and really allow you to phase out what your true leadership style is. Because nobody is made up of just one style, right? We are all agile, and there's a combination of things that make up who we are as leaders. But the natural place I go to is more democratic. What does that mean? I am more consultative in my approach. I like to bring my team together. I ask a lot for feedback and opinions before we make a decision. But the thing I would say, though, is depending on the situation, that changes quite a bit, right? So in a crisis situation, or when we were right in the heart of COVID-19 and decisions needed to be made very quickly, it changed a little bit from democratic to be a little bit more forceful, where decisions had to be made quickly. So I think, my natural position, as I said, it's democratic, but we're all made up of different levels of leadership styles. And I think depending on the situation, that can change quite a bit. Has my gender played a role in that? Probably. Hard to say, but I wouldn't know, right? Because I am who I've always been. I've always been a woman, and that's all I've known. But I think I've never been uncomfortable in a setting where it's, say, mostly men. I work in a very male-dominated industry. So the telecommunications industry is very male-dominated. And what you would expect is that, a woman coming in will have to, prove herself and put her foot down and, win the approval of the team. And I've never felt the need to do that. I've always still had a very consultative approach. So really, maybe a little bit, but overall, I think no matter what kind of situation I would have been in, the democratic leadership style is what would have come out, right? So I really don't think that the gender played a crucial role in defining my leadership style.
And quickly, what are your 3 key leadership attributes of an effective leader? What do you think the 3 key attributes they need to have?
Yeah, I think one that comes to mind quickly is resilience, right? Because if you look at the world we're in today, And if you look at a lot of companies, they've had to really take a beating over the last couple of months because of COVID-19, because of lockdowns, because of borders being closed, etc. And in that kind of situation, you need a leader who is resilient and can take that level of pressure. Somebody who does not easily melt down and can still keep the energy of the team up. There are lots of companies that are not making revenues right now that are really having a difficult time. And if you have a leader who doesn't have that level of resilience, I think they can easily crumble. And once your leader crumbles, the rest of the organization is going to fall as well. So I think resilience, especially in the world we live in today, is key. A second one that feeds of that is the ability to take decisive action. So as a leader, people expect you always to be right, but you're human. You're not always going to be right. There are going to be decisions you take that are not going to be the right ones. But once you decide to go down a certain path, once you decide to take a certain decision, it's so key that you have that level of fortitude around the decision you're taking, and you have a true belief that this is the right decision, and you push your team with it. Otherwise, if your team feels like you're dilly-dallying or you're unsure of the decision you're taking, you're going to lose them. They're not going to follow you, and you're not going to be able to sell that decision to them as strongly. So resilience and decisive action and decision making, I think, are two key ones. A third one that I'll mention quickly would be, strong communication skills. I think that's absolutely key. As a leader, you're going to have to push a vision. You're going to have to get people to follow you and rally behind what you say. And if you don't have that ability to communicate strongly and get them to really buy into what you're saying, I think you're going to have a difficult time having your team, rally around you and execute the ideas that you're putting on the table. But what I want to point out is that strong communication skills, that doesn't just end at you being a good speaker. It's also effective listening, right? So your team is going to know if you're that kind of leader who is always ready to tell them what to do and never take what they have to say. And I think that's one of the big things that people fail at leadership with. As a leader, it's so key to be able to let your team know that you're hearing them, you're listening to what they're saying, you get it, and it's influencing the decision you're making. You're taking their ideas and thoughts into consideration. So with strong communication, I mean speaking well, yes, but also being an effective listener. So those would be the three that I would mention.
Very interesting. Strong listener, take decisions, and have resilience. You're speaking my language. Mm-hmm. Engineer Brock, quick question. What is the toughest setback you've ever had as a leader?
Well, that's an interesting question. And in the public sector, it comes in all shapes and sizes. Exactly. In 2001, after being at the head of Department of Urban Roads for a while, there was a change in government, and we were asked to proceed on leave. That was an interesting time, and the question was, having gone through that experience, how are you going to take it? What are you going to do? It was really a time that you really couldn't say that this was going to be the new direction. But immediately after that, I was put into a completely new position, from a position of doing implementation to policy level, going to the Ministry of Roads at the time, and being put into a completely new environment and a new position. So what did you have to do? I thought, and for me, most of this comes as opportunities. I always look at them as opportunity. My principle is, when one door is closed, certainly another will be open. You don't keep looking back at the door. There's always an opportunity somewhere for you to. And I always take that and say, look, grab this. This is what you can do with it, and run with it. So changing positions has always been a challenge, but I also see it as an opportunity. That's not being the only one. Of course, within the ministry, you had to move from one directorate to another, from one ministry to another. And these all comes at times that you haven't planned for. But that for me, really, as I always say, creates a new opportunity for you. And what can you do with it? So I've had a number of times when I've had to move from one place to the other, most of the time unplanned, and asking myself, what are the new opportunities that I can take from this new environment which I've been brought in? And indeed, for me, I think it's always been, I've always had that time to be able to change direction, reinvent myself, if you like, and then, move. For example, I had to go into set up completely the research and statistics and information management position in the Ministry of Roads and Highways, completely from scratch. No schedules, nothing. And not being an IT person, what do you do? So really I had to learn get a team together, young people, and put that team together and immediately build a new directorate from scratch and set up doing things which hadn't been done before in the ministry. And I take those things as, the major challenges, but also the best opportunities that I've had. So for me, changes unplanned, but using them as opportunities for growth.
Okay. So expect changes unplanned, but make sure that you grow through them or you use them and understand that these things will happen, but you grow through the experience. Thank you for that. Mr. Kofi, somebody has a question for you and I have a question for you. So I'm going to give them both to you. The first one is there any point in a leader's journey to compromise his or her integrity? That's the first one. Then the second one that I want you to follow with after that first tough question is, what does a leadership culture look like? And I want you to describe it in the most descriptive way, if I can use the same word again.
I guess there's a saying, I think in the Bible, that a good name is better than riches. And I think one of the things about leadership is to have or to build a character that people can trust. And integrity is such an important aspect of character building. If a leader does not have integrity, I do not see how his followers are actually going to follow and trust him. Because integrity is actually the bedrock or the foundation of true character. And so character is important in one's life. Character is important in leading a people. Character is important in actually driving a certain agenda, because integrity is important in driving an agenda, because integrity has to do with the consistency between what you think, what you say, and what you do. Are you consistent in what you think and what you say and what you do? And people are looking up to you as a leader. And so you cannot afford to say one thing and act differently, okay? And when you are saying what you're saying, do you have peace within yourself? Because what you're saying is consistent with what you think, all right? So integrity is such a critical thing. I do not see why or what should give cause for one to put aside or abandon integrity in the course of their journey. Because the moment you do, it means that you're not being true to yourself. All right? You're doing one thing that you do not believe in. And that can actually derail you. So there must be that consistency and you being comfortable with yourself, that you believe in what you're saying and you're actually going on to walk the talk, not just say it. So integrity should be held in high esteem and should be kept throughout the journey. That's what I would say. Coming to your question about can you ask the question again? What a leadership culture should look like?
What does a leadership culture look like?
Right. Now, the definition of culture, it has been said by, I think, one of my panel members, is the way we do things, our lifestyle, our DNA, how we do things here. But the definition of culture that I would like to use is the one that says that culture is the collective programming of the human mind. Okay, that sets maybe one people from another or distinguishes one people from another. You can even call it the software of the mind. So it is the way people have been so socialized that they actually act even without thinking that they're acting that way. It has become second nature to them. And so the people of Ghana have a culture. It's the way we do things. And these are born from deeply ingrained values by which we have been socialized from birth. So we have been socialized into thinking a certain way. We have been socialized into believing certain things. We have been socialized into actually accepting certain things. And so we walk through our lives actually living by those things. So it's a software of the mind. Any software has been programmed to act in a certain way. And so the typical Ghanaian who has gone through that socialization, the tendency is for him or her to act in that way, even without knowing that he or she is acting in that way, because that is the software that she has been programmed with. Now, this dialogue is about how do we build a leadership culture in Ghana. Using the title, even maybe as a way of actually addressing it. Building means that we need a foundation. And the culture of a nation is something that has been born over time. And so to build that culture, we need to recognize that this is going to take a long time. Okay? Now, this is going to take a lot of work. And this has to do with actually getting to the foundation of the nation. Okay, so it would have to start from the youth, so that by the time they grow into adulthood, they are exhibiting and demonstrating that kind of behavior, all right? A leadership behavior that comes like second nature, right? So that has to be tackled. But because I believe that it has become necessary to build a culture of leadership in Ghana, because right now we cannot say with confidence that we have that. Maybe we had it in the past, but we are losing out on it for whatever reason. And so if there's a need to build it, it means that we have found it to be wanting. And so to build that culture, we would have to tackle it at different levels. First of all, we have the youth of this country. We then have middle-aged people. And then we have adults, okay, or if you like, veterans. Now, for all these different levels, they have very significant touch points that you can reach them at in order to influence their leadership life or to impart leadership onto them. The way you tackle the youth would be different from the way you tackle the middle-aged people. And then when it comes to the very elderly ones, you may not want to spend too much time and, if you like, energy, because to a very large extent, they're set in their ways. And so not really, there's not too much you can do in that sector. But when you come especially to the youth, for example, what are the significant touch points in their lives? Where do they spend their time? The youth are either in school, or they're in their home, or they are on social media, all right, browsing and seeing what is trending, or they are in church, and so on. Now, these are the significant touch points where you always find these people. And so if you want them, or if you want to influence them, these are the areas that you must go look for them and then influence them. In the home, the father's behavior, the mother's behavior actually impacts on the children, okay? What they say, what they do, their conduct, the children are learning from it. When they go to school, what the teacher says means a lot to them. What the teacher does, school administrators, what they do, those things are important. When they go to church, their church leaders, how do they act, and so on. These are such important touch points that if we want to create a culture of leadership, then at all these different touch points, there should be people there who are showing them the way, who are impacting on them, teaching them that this is the way to go, who are helping them to learn leadership skills and giving them opportunity to grow in leadership. All right. When you come to the middle age, they spend most of their time in their workplace or home, again in churches and so on. All right. And then their peers are also very significant touch points for them. These are the areas that we can reach these people and try to influence their leadership behavior or journeys. And then you can talk also about the elderly. And so for us to build a very robust leadership culture, it has to be intentional. And it has to look at all these facets that we're talking about, because our nation is made up of these people. And I would say, I dare to say that I think it would be prudent to spend a lot more time and resources at the youth, because they are our future tomorrow. So what we are going to be and how we are going to be seen as a country tomorrow is dependent on what our youth are going to be demonstrating out there for everybody to see, for people to now begin to see that, this is a Ghana thing. The typical Ghanaian behaves like this, and they are demonstrating leadership qualities in everything they do.
Very interesting, Mr. Kofi. You know what? I think it's time for us to take the kiddie gloves off, because obviously all of you are very warmed up. So let's get to the real issue, my ulterior motive. As a division director for Toastmasters, an organization that brands itself as a place where leaders are made, our current vision for this year is to build a hub for developing exemplary leaders across the world. And our mission is to build leaders who communicate to influence and lead to solve. Now, I'm sure I shared with you that when we initially came up with this topic, some skeptics had the response, we've heard these before, nothing happens. So I want practical steps, guidelines. What can we do as an organization like Toastmasters from today moving forward to ensure that Ghana becomes a leadership culture?
Papa, do you mind if I can take it from there very quickly?
From the where?
Okay, can I go on?
Yes, please.
Right. I think first and foremost, we need to start from our immediate sphere of influence. Where do we find ourselves, and in what ways can we influence those around us? Okay, now that is not overambitious, because that is where you are. So in your immediate space, in what ways can I influence the people around me? And let me go to some recent examples. When he talked about what we consider as the most important leadership qualities or so, now for me, one of them is actually being comfortable with challenge. All right. You talked about setback. It just occurred to me when you asked that question that I have not looked at things like that as setbacks, but rather as challenges. And therefore, if you're somebody who looks forward to challenge, then it means that you like to solve problems. Sometimes when challenges come your way, then your creative juices kind of just come up and you want to do things. And so if you take COVID, right? COVID brought upon all of us numerous challenges, unparalleled, unforeseen, and so on. In my particular case, I am managing the emerging public leaders in Ghana, and on our calendar is an important activity to recruit our 2020 fellows into the fellowship. When COVID came with its disruptions, without thinking, without second thought, I just decided that COVID was not going to be a disruption to our recruitment calendar. And that was it. And so it was about rallying with my team members to look at what alternative platforms or ways we can get this recruitment underway without allowing COVID to be an obstacle. And so we did not see it as a disruption anymore. Okay, and it set us thinking. It set us being creative. It set us looking for what it would take to actually undertake the recruitment process. And so between the time we took that decision in March to today, my immediate sphere of influence has been impacted upon. My team members now believe that it is possible to do it. They realize that we should not, look, what challenges, didn't COVID bring about? And if you're going to do, let's say, recruitment virtually, there are so many challenges. People will tell you that internet connectivity is not good enough throughout the country. All right, and also, can people afford to be on using data, listening to, sitting in an interview for how many hours? Who would pay them? Who would pay for them to sit on an interview? The problems are there, but we refuse to see them as problems. And we took a decision that will do what it will take to so organize this recruitment. Long and short of it is that we were able to execute a recruitment process that you cannot fault or as compared to the physical or in-person interviews that we normally hold. And by the time we were done, not only are we as a team had been able to succeed in doing that, but we had carried the whole community along with us. Now, this community was made up of all the interview panel members, some of whom had never actually done a virtual meeting or undertaken a virtual interview. But because we were bent and keen on doing it, we carried them along. We showed them how to do it, all right? We interviewed 126 people at the first stage. We came down to 66. Then we came down to 35. When we finished, we did an evaluation of the process amongst the people who did not make it to the final selection. And their feedback was consistent. They said they had learned so much in this process. So this is an example of carrying your whole community along with you and actually impacting that community because you decided to overcome a challenge, all right, and to solve a problem. And so I think we can start with our immediate sphere of influence and then begin to take it from there. With that fire, you have taught somebody to go and teach somebody else. Okay, so that is what I would say for now.
Very interesting. Teach others to teach somebody. Go to the homes, connect. Don't be afraid of change. Don't be afraid of dealing with the problems that come in. Wonderful. Mr. Saki, advise me. How do we build a leadership culture in Ghana?
I think Moses started by talking about the youth and the approach to the elders. But I wouldn't maybe look at Ghana in its entirety. I believe that each of us represents specific building blocks of what we call the country Ghana. And if we are able to practice some of the things that Moses clearly outlined when he was discussing how to develop leaders, then we will start one block at a time. I don't believe that there's a silver bullet that can be sort of used to tomorrow morning develop fresh leaders. But if we start with a culture, and what I started by saying that culture is the way we do things. So my first question attempt then is, how do we want to do things in
I think his internet has
There's a freeze, huh?
yeah, his internet has frozen. Okay. All right. Rosie, are you going to provide us internet?
Daniel should have called me, huh?
All right, Rosie, let me bring that same question to you. How do we build this leadership culture in Ghana? And Rosie, while you're answering, I want you to also advise me on where we should take, what direction we should take this program. Because I really want this program to make an impact, and I want us to see the results of leadership by the end of this 12-episode series.
No, absolutely. So when it comes to leadership culture, I mean, one of the things that strikes me in Ghana is this notion that has always bothered me, where we are taught not to question authority. We are taught to do as we are told. And I believe that is a fundamental issue to some extent in building a leadership culture. Moses said it rightly. If we're going to get this right, it starts with the youth. So if you're thinking about this from a business environment, for example, you want to be able to have leadership across the entire sphere of your organization. So not leaders who just sit in the management team, but leaders who come out from your national service level, from your interns, from middle management. You need to have a pipeline of successes in your organization. And if we have a culture that doesn't promote speaking up, doesn't promote free thinking, doesn't allow people to express themselves, to experiment, to make mistakes, and we punish people for that, I think we're never going to be able to build a leadership culture that can actually take us to the next level. And that's one of the things that in organizations I've worked with, I've tried to do something about. So I remember back in my days at Tigo, for example, I started out working with a telemarketing team that was made up strictly of national service. And every time you told them what to do, they were amazing. They were great executors. And you ask them, do you have any questions? Do you have any suggestions? And they'll say no. They were ready to do the work and they did it well. But that was where it ended. They were used to being told what to do. And I realized that as one of the fundamental issues we have with a lot of the youth in Ghana, which if we don't break, we're never going to be able to get a mass of leaders coming out, right? So what I started doing a lot more was forcing them to speak, forcing them to come up with ideas, making them actually be the ones to determine some of the things we should do, some of the, so this was a telemarketing team, so they were calling customers and asking them for feedback. So they would come up with the questions instead of me thinking about what they should ask the customers, they would go ahead and do it. And what I realized was as they started doing that, I would be sitting at my desk and some of these guys would run to me and say, hey, let me tell you something I thought about, something we can do different, something we can do more of. And it got to a point where if we were having team meetings and I'd say something, one of them would raise their hand and disagree with me. And I got so excited about that. Every time somebody disagreed with me, I felt like I'd won, because finally they were beginning to think for themselves. They were beginning to step up and do things and come up with ideas that initially they weren't doing. And a lot of those people, I think back now, are in really good positions, senior positions in other organizations. It's funny, one of them, the national service who was on my team at Tigo, is actually the one who recruited me for my role at this. That's how far he's gone now, right?
Wow.
And it just started from they learning how to question and they learning how to step out and ask questions and think more and contribute more and realize that they also have the power to push further and help the organization grow. Because they were under the mindset that we are national service, so we just come and we give coffee and we tell people what to do. And that's the first part of the culture that we need to really do a good job of changing. Because without that, without getting youth that are coming in who are focused and ready to make a change, I think we're going to fail eventually, because you'll never have that necessary pipeline of successes who will continue to keep an organization afloat. And then, you asked about Toastmasters in itself. What can Toastmasters do? And I think what Toastmasters stands for, I agree. I mean, I think more companies absolutely need to have a Toastmasters club in the organization. One of the things we talked about when we mentioned the attributes of effective leadership and how to build a leadership culture is this whole idea of communication. And I think that's one of the key things that Toastmasters does very well, is allowing people to become better communicators by actually practicing and having people who can critique them and give them the tools that's necessary. So I think you guys have an absolutely key role to play in enhancing that and helping people to become better communicators. And that adage of practice makes perfect is absolutely key. And with Toastmasters, I think you give people the opportunity to practice the skills of leadership in a way that they might not necessarily be able to do on the job. So the role plays you do, the setups you do in your club meetings, etc., I think absolutely crucial in giving people a safe environment to practice leadership, but also to get critiqued and to get feedback in an environment that doesn't really have reviews or that will affect their bonus at the end of the year. And that's absolutely crucial as well. And panels like this, Papa, I think are absolutely crucial. There's a lot of conversations that are going on about leadership, etc. And I think what you've done to be able to curate this panel and come bring people together who can share their experiences, there needs to be a lot more of these conversations had. There needs to be a lot more of these idea sharing panels. And I hope that the panelists who are on will actually contribute, ask more questions, and we'll give them a chance to actually speak and hear their opinions as well. Because I'm sure you have a lot of great attendees who can contribute to this conversation as well. So I really, truly believe that Toastmasters has a very, very key role to play and can enhance its role in helping push the leadership agenda in Ghana quite a lot.
Yeah, we have a Q&A session coming up. But Rosie, sounds to me like we need to either take you as our endorser or we need to make you like a special marketing, because you've sold us totally. I mean, I'm sure anybody who's wondering if you should join Toastmasters is thinking about it now. So you've made up for all your crimes in the past.
Remember 2015, yes, at Airtel, when we started the Toastmasters Club, I was involved with that. So I've seen what you guys are doing for the last 5 years. It's not a gimmick at all. I think there's a lot of value in there. If you had an R counter here today, that would have really benefited us, you know.
Engineer Brock, I heard you. I saw you smile the moment Rosie started and talking about not being able to question back. I saw a quick smile on your face, and I'm just very curious. So, what's your take on the same question?
Well, I smiled because that is a culture in public service, unfortunately, and sometimes you come against it and you wonder, when are you going to be able to tell people what you're thinking? And unfortunately, it's quite steeped in the public service. But it is clearly an opportunity for us to have a place to make change. And my way of, style of leadership is trying to get people to really give me a feedback. And so I spend a lot of time walking to individual offices and having a chat with them and saying, look, this is a problem. What do you think? Don't come to my office with a problem if you don't have a proposed solution coming along with it. Take the opportunity to make the initiative. I'll go along with you if it's good. If it's not, we will discuss it and we'll find a way to find a solution. So I encourage people to speak. I encourage people to say, look, this is just not as the boss is coming to me, I can't say anything. Tell me what you think, and let's work together to find solutions. So for me, I believe that culture, if you like, has to be broken. That culture has to change. We have to be able to get people who are ready to think, and you'd be surprised how much people have interesting solutions for problems in the public service. And when you give them the opportunity, look, they come up with so much. So I believe that it's a good fertile ground for Toastmasters. Maybe you need to find a way to lock into the public service and,
You're speaking my language.
and get people to start coming along and saying, we have an opportunity to speak. We have an opportunity to be able to make suggestions and, give them a platform. And unfortunately, let me add this. You see, it's not just only the young ones. Because that culture is steeped, at the higher management level, you have lots of people who would be very resistant to people coming up. And that has to change as well. So it's not the young people being encouraged to make the suggestions to be able to speak. It is also getting up into the higher levels to make people to start changing their minds on how opening up to people who can make suggestions and make things happen. So I think there's an opportunity for you. And basically, if we want to see a change in this country, public service is one place that you can go, because it's big case for you to make big changes in the way we look at leadership in the public service.
And I'm very excited you say that, considering that I have 12 years experience from the public service myself. So why don't we do this? Because I'm sure most of my audience is waiting for me to do this. Engineer Brock, are you committing in front of our 60-something panelists to help me set up a Toastmasters chapter in the head of civil service?
I'm committing to that.
Wow, folks, you heard it.
I'm committing to that because I want to see that change happen as well. So I'm committing to that.
Thank you. I know I'm being shameless, but sometimes it's okay.
Oh, we can forgive you on this one.
Dan, you got kicked off, and Rosie actually offered. She said if you had come to her for internet, you would never have been kicked off. So
I knew Rosie was going to say that. I knew Rosie was going to say that. So I think it's fair. My internet service provider would have to start thinking whether it wants to keep me as a customer or not, because it kept me off at a crucial time when I was trying to make a couple of points. So I'm actually now, I've switched to my phone, so I'm sure you probably will get a few disturbance here and there, but hopefully that works. Okay.
That's okay.
Good. I was just going to touch on two points, and I was going to make reference to the unfortunate events of this morning, where I think one of our ministers had to resign over a behavioral pattern that had been exhibited, and it speaks to what I said earlier on, that we need to be able to walk the talk. If we say that as a nation we are battling COVID-19, and for that matter, isolation was key. If you had come into contact with somebody, not even to talk about if you have tested positive, then leaving your confinement place to go out into public then becomes an issue. So classic case of not being able to demonstrate. And when you have that, it's actually also linked to one important thing that I look at, which is integrity. Okay, and this is basically to do the right thing even when no one is watching. If he was sure that nobody was watching and he still managed to stay confined, then that would be integrity. But that clearly is not the case. So if we are looking to build a leadership culture in Ghana, then those who lead must demonstrate integrity. The second thing is that the followers must understand clearly where we are heading towards. Why are we doing ABC? Will it get us to the destination? More importantly, what is in it for us if as a people we do get there? So I said that whilst Moses had looked at it from a certain angle, and I'm sure Engineer Brock had looked at it from the public sector angle, if each of us representing particular building blocks of the economy or of the country start looking at it from our own area, then we'll have building blocks of excellence that can then be fused together, because it will not be possible to get everybody into one classroom or into one experience, but at least one common theme will be running through each of the sessions. And the first common theme is if there is integrity amongst leadership. The second thing is if leadership is able to demonstrate that it is actually walking the talk. These two key characteristics, if we can get it inculcated where we sit, then we are on the road to developing the building blocks. And that can then be infused into whichever aspects or unit or department you find yourself. If you are dealing with the youth, the same principles run through. If you are dealing with the public sector, it's the same principles that are running through. If you are dealing with the private sector, it's the same principles. And I believe that even in social organization, the same principle can run through. So we will be in a position to start laying the building blocks of creating a leadership culture in the country when we start demonstrating that as leaders, we are seeking the interest of our people. And I know that there is a thin line, especially where you are. I'm sure that when the president says that we should stay indoors, probably he knows that we are not happy and we want to have the freedom of going out. But the essential task is to ensure that we are confined so that we don't spread. So that difficult decision, I am sure, is taken with a pinch of salt. And for those of us who are not yet aware of it, then we will need convincing. In any organization, the same principle also applies, that once the vision is clear to the leader, then the biggest task is to make sure that the people around him and the people along the chain buy that, because leadership then flows from the top right to the very bottom of the pyramid. And if we can focus on these two things, I believe that we'll have the building blocks right.
So it sounds to me like, and I'm going to try to do a quick recap here, and then we go into some Q&As. So it sounds to me like we need to have a siloed approach, block by block, creating this culture and letting it ripple across the country. So easier bites. And we need to ensure that we're persuading the right people. We need to make sure that we're engaging the right people and we're changing mindsets, moving on. Other things that have been said today is that we can start from our immediate sphere of influence. So first and foremost, maybe I need to be concentrating on ensuring that every Toastmaster, whether new or not, is a leader, understands leadership and imbibes leadership. And then they in turn can also truncate it to their households, and we move from there. Sounds like we need to be doing engagement in the schools, at homes, and in different sectors as well. We've already gotten, by the way, Dan, you missed it. Engineer Brock committed to, help me set up a Toastmasters Club in the head of civil service. So just FYI for you. Yes.
No, thank you. I actually was on by that time. By that time, my 2x4 internet had been able to connect me. So I had him. And it was quite clear that he had promised, and we look forward to that.
Thank you very much. And I'm looking at Moses. I mean, I'm hoping that he will say something soon because he's making me look bad right now. EPL.
Well, I told you I love taking on challenge. So
okay,
bring
wonderful.
it on.
So EPL is next. And Rosie, you already know. So yeah, let's go on. So we talked about the fact that it's important. You cannot make it alone. You need followers. And so you need to constantly have a learning mindset and also a developing mindset, developing the people around you consistently. We also talked about having the knack for avoiding controversy, but having the knack for taking advantage of opportunity wherever you find it, no matter how unpleasant. Picking up things around you and using them as building blocks. Preparation is always key. Also understanding culture and understanding the DNA of the organization you find yourself in. Taking ownership for success and failures. Building and learning and then learning to empower the people around you. And we also touched on leadership styles. Okay, so these are all action points that we're going to develop into a strategic direction to move forward. Now, let's quickly take some of the questions that have been coming up from our panelists. Somebody is asking you, Dan, is there any difference between leadership styles in the public sector and the private sector?
Yeah, tough one. I think the principles are the same. When I speak to my friends in the public sector, one of the things they remind me is that, well, you have the luxury of choosing your team. We don't. Okay, so if I look at it purely from this side, then I would say that to some extent in the private sector, we have a bit of leverage in being able, one, to identify clearly what our objectives are, two, be very clear about the resources that we need. And I dare say that I think for most time, the resources that we need are well set out. And if you harness it from the right source, you will get all the resources that you need, at least majority of it, to be able to pursue. And if I look at it from the public sector, it is possible that, for example, Engineer Brock will say that maybe your budgetary allocation probably might not have come in. Your preference will be to recruit a certain caliber of people, and you might not have the flexibility of being able to build the team that you want around you. So you work with what is available. But I think that there are snippets of either in both. And and on a personal note, when I moved to Rwanda, we took over a bank that had basically failed. Okay, and we needed to, one, restructure and turn it around. But then that meant taking a hard look at what was on the ground. Is it what we want it to be? If it is not, how do we churn it, and how do we turn it into what EcoBank wants it to be? How do you take the EcoBank culture and implant it? The first thing was to actually understand the local culture itself, where you then realize that if you ask a question and somebody doesn't respond, it doesn't mean that the person says yes. So those little nuances would also be equivalent to the public sector, where you don't have everything, and also where you then have a crop of people that you have inherited. Being able to walk through that, determine who is fit for the journey ahead, and being able to quickly identify laggards and seeing how you can quietly and maybe without any noise exit them, to be able to focus on your objective ahead, brings the public and private sector situation closer together. So they are different, but at a certain point in time, they converge in the sense that we all would then have to face with working with limited resources, working with limited number of people to be able to achieve a defined goal. But definitely I agree that the two will not converge at all times.
Okay. Engineer Brock, I'm coming to you soon with the same question, but Dan, let me ask you this finally. Somebody's asking, what is the best leadership style in a competitive environment? And I know your environment is very competitive.
I would not subscribe to one to say probably it is purely, has to be purely democratic or has to be authoritarian. I think that in a competitive environment, the key thing is to identify what we want to be. Okay, what is our vision? And permit me to use EcoBank probably as an example. 4 years ago, we had looked at the landscape and said, the telephone was gradually becoming more and more an acceptable means of delivering financial services. Given the migration of people and the number of people who came into smartphone ownership, the number of apps and enablers that had been built onto it, clearly it was becoming more and more malleable in terms of its ability to become a source or a channel for delivery of financial services. To do that, then we needed to, one, start retooling, clarify clearly what we want to do, retool towards that, train our people, and get everybody aligned. We have done this quietly over the past 3-4 years. COVID-19 comes in early this year, and we were very quickly able to harness the benefits of the investment we've made in technology, in people, and in our clients, because we had been able to demonstrate to our clients, albeit on a limited scale, that this works. The convenience factor had come in, and that gamble that we took 4 years ago today has positioned us very well. We have been able to work remotely. We have been able to serve our clients, and are actually building on that, because some of the people we thought were not aligned to adoption of technology, we actually realized that COVID-19 has accelerated technology adoption 2-3 times within a space of 3 months. So being ready for that opportunity, having the vision, preparing for it, and being able to capitalize when the opportunity arose will be very, very key. As an organization, once you are ready to do that and commit to doing that, and are able to bring your people along, empower them, then I believe you have a winning team.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. Very practical insights there. All right, so Engineer Brock, same thing. Is there a clear difference between public sector and private sector leadership? And somebody's asking, shouldn't leadership attitude start at the highest level? Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'd say the principles are the same. Challenges are just different. So you can adopt the same kind of, principles, effective communication, a human-centered approach, learning mindset. You can apply all of that to public sector. Your challenges just will be different. Maybe your resources will not be up and available when you need it. It'll be cut. 50% of it will not be released to you. But the question is, you still have to deliver on your targets. So how do you do that? So your challenges will be different. And now, basically, I believe that maybe in the public sector, we have to do a lot more in leadership to get things done. Probably in the private sector, it's just a point I have to make. But at the end of the day, really, if you apply the same principles, you can get the people to work, your team to get along with you, communicate your vision, communicate what you want to do, let them come along with vision. You can still do it. You would have just different challenges. So principles, same, challenges, different. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. And do you think that leadership should come from the top, like this gentleman is asking?
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay. And I think that one of the things in public sector is, leadership has to be consistent.
Okay.
You have to be consistent, and value system, which needs to be quite clear, should be in place. Leadership by example is, paramount in whichever sphere that you look at it. I mean, I think the example that Dan came up with is, absolutely apt in this instance. Leadership by example, and it has to start with the top. And when the top is clear on what it needs to do, you can have people coming along with them. And so, yes, leadership is always, at the top. Must be one thing clear. Even at the other levels, once you define leadership properly, you find that you have at lower levels, middle level, people have to understand that they have leadership roles. And that is not only that at the top that we can make an impact, but even at the middle level and at other levels, people can take leadership roles and make a difference. So yes, the top in terms of leadership, in terms of example on how things to be done, but leadership at various levels also have to be quite clear. People have to take initiative, people have to take responsibility for what they do, and they must also follow a clear line and of purpose on what needs to be achieved. So yes, the top can provide that leadership, but we must always remember that leadership role is at also various levels within an organization.
Wonderful. Rosie, somebody's asking how you are able to manage family roles with corporate roles as a woman leader.
Interesting question. And anybody who tells you that is easy, I will say today is completely lying. It is not, right? Combining both takes a lot of balancing and juggling. And in my situation, so I have 3 kids. My youngest is 1 and my oldest is 6. And many times you feel like you're not giving enough attention and focus to the family. And other times you feel like you're just not being supportive to the organization enough. So balancing managing over 100 employees with having a very young family hasn't necessarily been easy. For me, though, what's helped is that I have developed a support system that has been very helpful to me. So my mom, my husband, these are all people that I count on to help me, every time I need it. I think a lot of women feel like they have to be superwoman and do it all by themselves, and asking for help kind of is looked down upon because they want to show that they can do it and they can break through the glass ceiling. And all of that is fair, but it comes to a point where you do have to ask for help, and you do have to seek other people to help you be the best version of yourself. And we shouldn't be ashamed of doing that. We shouldn't be shy. You can't do it all the time. And there's times when, I would go to my boss. So when I was working with Lucy Quist, for example, at Airtel, I'll go to her, knock on her door and say, Charlie, this one, tomorrow I need to work half the day from home, and she would understand. And this wasn't because she was a woman boss, but she also understood that there is a lot of challenges. I've had male bosses that I've had to go to and, be real with them and let them understand some of the challenges and the fact that, I need some time, I need some space. And we're afraid to do that a lot of the time because we're afraid people will judge us. Oh, this person is not going to be successful, or they're always taking time, or because their kid is sick. Those are all stigmas that women face a lot of the time. But that shouldn't stop you from, seeking out that help as needed, and realizing that people are there to support, and people, really want to see women succeed and women rise as high as they can in organizations. And we don't have to, pretend to be superwoman all the time. We need to be able to get the support. We need to balance home and work as effectively as possible. So for me, having a good network that supports me and asking for help when I need it has been 2 things that has really helped me, survive and balance both as well as possible.
Mr. Kofi, emerging public leaders. Thank you for that, Rosie. Emerging public leaders, what is your vision? How do you think that you can contribute to changing the leadership culture in the public service?
Right. In emerging public leaders, our vision is to help infuse the Ghanaian public sector with young, competent public servants who think critically and they are keen on acting ethically in order to bring about change and improvements in government service delivery. Now, all of us depend on the policies of government in whatever we do. As citizens of the country, as businesses, we are all dependent on the policies of government. And so how quickly I can get a birth certificate ready or a passport depends on government policy. How quickly you can set up a business depends on government policy, and so on and so forth. And so government business is that important. And we believe that, like some other countries have shown or demonstrated, you want to make sure that the government also has some of the best talent. And so our approach is to recruit some of the brightest students from our Ghanaian universities and enter into an arrangement with the Office of the Head of Civil Service that allows these pool of graduates to go in there to undertake their national service, all right? And then hopefully make a career in the civil service. When we send them in there, first of all, they are smart. That you can be assured of, because these are second class, our first class students. We add to it, we invest in them by undertaking regular training of these people so that they are on top of their job. So the training is geared towards what they would need to be able to perform on their job in the service. At the same time, we also assign mentors to them. These are people who guide them on their journey, their leadership journey. We make sure right from the get-go, even at the national service level, these people are working to a performance contract. So they are not going to work and coming back home just for the sake of it, but they are working to a clear outline of outputs that they need to achieve so that after a given period, one can go back and assess them on what they have done versus what they were supposed to do. And we believe that these interventions, of course, there's also the community service project that they are supposed to undertake. We believe that these interventions are key to helping them become, all right, potential leaders in the public service. And we are, I think we have been vindicated so far by the raving feedback that we have gotten from their supervisors in the public sector about the contribution they are making to work in those ministries. And so that gives us a lot of comfort that it is working. But I guess this is just the beginning of it. And if you look at the numbers in there, they are a mere trickle, all right, in the bigger scheme of things. So, but at least you must start from somewhere. And we believe that as we steadily put or inject such people into the public sector, and we build their expertise, we make them that competent, and we give them challenge, and we give them opportunity to grow, definitely it is going to have an impact, all right? And already we have a lot of supervisors and ministry telling us that we want more of them, and we can't do without them. Some of them are actually up to their neck with work because of the contribution they are making to the spaces in which they find themselves. So this is our little way of contributing to the public sector development or improvement in Ghana. But we have even a bigger vision, and that is to create a Pan-African network of such very competent public servants so that over time, it is not going to be a Ghana thing, but an African-wide thing where you can actually speak to people of like mind, people who are making same amount of contribution to their public sectors, okay? And through that network, they will share ideas of things that are happening elsewhere that could actually be brought into this space, and things that are happening here that are good that could also be exported to other places. So that is the idea, that over time, this network of very competent young people would grow into positions where they can actually lead by example and influence the rest of public sector work.
Sounds like very audacious goals and a very big vision. And I hope that we can realize it.
We will need a network of collaborators. It's not going to be an easy one. Just like
Absolutely.
any.
You already have the first network here.
Thank you.
Yes. So, anybody who wants to engage our panelists directly, please put your hands up and I'll allow you to speak directly to them. But while we're waiting for you to do that, Dansaki, I have a question here for you. It's actually a two-pronged question. They say, what's the best advice you can give to help plan a career rather than simply work to keep a job? And then the second part of the question is there any mechanism in your organization to identify talent and nurture such talents to be the best versions of themselves?
Okay. The first part is, please repeat the first part.
The first part is, what is the best advice you can give
Yes.
to help plan a career rather than simply work to keep a job?
I think what is important in planning a career is by starting to look at what are the opportunities. Obviously, there is a joke that I always share with my colleagues and say that anybody who is looking for a job can always go to the post office. They are hiring. Okay. The idea is that the post office, I'm not sure most young people even have seen the inner workings of a post office before, because the basic function was to distribute letters. And today that has been taken over by instant gratification, where email does all the jobs. So if you are trying to build a career in the post office, then unless you are looking at the courier aspect, where they have also tried to evolve by now doing door-to-door deliveries. I think that in every organization, you need to study where you sit in the organization. What is the future of the organization? What are the growth areas? And you should be able to pitch yourself alongside the rails which are supporting the growth areas. If you pitch yourself in an area where you know clearly that the product has a limited shelf life or limited lifespan, it is going out of fashion, then you are not pitching yourself properly. So there will not be one commonly thread, but what is key is in wherever you find yourself, identify where the growth prospects are. And most time, the growth areas will be areas where there are challenges. And when you prepare yourself for that challenge, you will be ready when the opportunity comes up. The second thing is never stop learning. Never stop learning, because each day brings its own challenges. The challenges become building blocks when you have mastered them, and you help build resilience. As to whether there is a mechanism for identifying, yes, there is. But most of us make the mistake of thinking that I need to be close to a particular area before I can be noticed. Practically, we've had people working from remote areas, from branches. And what has become very clear is the performance of those branches, is the performance of those units. The message there is that wherever you find yourself, excel. One of my colleagues tells me that if you even transfer her into the archives, you know, we had a problem at a point where when you are not performing, you are transferred to the archives. And she used to say that if you transfer me to the archives, by the time you get there, I would have developed that place, rearranged that place, and we'll be having parties every day, that everybody will want to work there.
Yeah.
That speaks to the quality of pursuing excellence. And I believe that in every organization, be it on the shop floor, be it in management, be it in senior management, we all have opportunities to excel. What is important is that be very good at what you do. If your job is to welcome clients into your organization, be very good at that. Do it with a smile, so that somebody will be able to say, this is the person I want to work with for me. And that is how you set up being identified as a talent. The formal structures are there, but then these are more readily accessible opportunities for learning and preparing yourself. And I'll give a final example. In one of the countries where I had worked before, we had closed from work and had gone into a restaurant to try and grab some food as dinner. We were about 4 sitting there. It was a busy restaurant, and we had ordered. 1 hour after we had ordered, the food had not come in. And we, of course, we started complaining. Then the waitress came out and said, gentlemen, we have a problem. We took an order for 4, but it looks as if the 4th one, we didn't get it right. So the order sheet had only 3. So I may have to take a 4th order. And if it has taken us 1 hour for the food to come and we've not had it now, we have to wait hopefully another hour. But the way she handled us, she said, I'm sorry, we made a mistake. However, we are offering you 1 round of drinks on the house. Of course, did we notice that we were spending another 20, 30 minutes? No. Just by the way we handled us, we stayed, our food came after 20 minutes, but we never talked about that. The whole idea was about the experience. So a year later, I went into the same country and we went to the same restaurant to eat because of the service. When we got there, we asked for that particular waitress and we were told that she doesn't work there anymore. She had been hired as a customer service. She had been hired as a customer service person for Barclays Bank.
There you go.
So wherever you find yourself, the lesson is be the best at what you are asked to do. And that will make you noticeable among the pile of people around you.
Thank you very much. Moses, it looks like somebody has been offended by something you said. I don't know. The person says, please tell Mr. Moses Kofi that second class lower is not necessarily bad. And that when you have some disciplines like mathematics, statistics, and other technical areas, they may be better than art students. Well, that's left to their discretion. I think we have somebody here who has his hands up, and I'm going to go ahead and allow him to talk. Sethalote, you're online. Who do you want to talk to?
Seth is muted.
Sethalote, you are muted. Please unmute your mic and speak.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. I really appreciate what's going on. My question is to Mr. Kofi. I really love the initiative to train leaders, emerging leaders for our public sector. My question to Mr. Moses is this training targets towards middle to top management to run our public sector? Or, I mean, to the middle, because we are instances in Africa or Ghana specific where our government or politicians take over the public sector. We have appointments being made by government at the top level. Now we are getting to a point that people are scared that this appointment is now drilling down to middle level management. My question is, what challenge that Mr. Kofi think they can overcome to the point that you train leaders or you train these emerging leaders that they'll get to the top to see the transformational change that we want in the public sector. Otherwise, you train, and at the end of the day, government will do its appointments. The directors, the CEO, and at the end of the day, your target or the mission or the objective in undergoing this mission may not be achieved. So that's my question to Mr.
Thank you, Salote. Okay, yeah. Mr. Kofi, over to you.
Right, so thank you very much for your question. I am happy you've asked this question. Maybe later on we can give Mr. Brock an opportunity to clarify what politicians are able to do and not do in the civil service. But what I'm happy about is this. You're right. What we are doing now is actually from the entry level. So the people we are pushing in are coming in from the entry level. I must say here, I hope I would not, I must say here that we are looking at other opportunities, all right, of infusing into other personnel in the civil service, the same things we are doing, interventions we are doing for these people, but at a different level. So this is it's still on the drawing board, where we are looking at probably impacting middle management in the civil service. So there's actually work or thinking in that area. But you know something, even if we kept it at just the entry level and the middle level without necessarily going to the top, and I do agree with somebody who says that shouldn't those at the top be the ones who should be actually demonstrating exemplary leadership? I believe so. It is said that everything starts and falls with leadership. So as much as possible, you are looking at the people who people you look up to, you're watching them, you're observing their pronouncements, you're observing their conduct, everything they do, okay, to take an example from or to take guidance from. Now, I believe that when we continue to focus on the youth and to teach them all the leadership qualities and to guide them and to grow them, okay, to take upon themselves the leadership qualities we need in order to change this country, we are going to get to a time where they will challenge the conduct of political power. They will challenge why government should put people or appoint people into the civil service instead of allowing the bureaucrats to do their work. We are going to get to a time when people will be confident enough to hold government accountable and to call government out on what they think is not right. And government would not have an excuse but to listen, because we are getting to a point in time where it is the movement, the force of the masses that are going to dictate what happens. And so it's only a matter of time, because it's very sad that people we look up to don't, unfortunately, it's not everybody who's up there at the top who has what it takes to be followed, all right? Okay, what I'm saying is simply this. Some people don't have what it takes to be exemplary leaders. It's as simple as that. And you can't give what you don't have. And so there indeed are some people there who don't have what it takes. They are not role models for us. And it is only a matter of time, because of the pressure of the young ones on those in power, such people would be compelled to leave. And an example has been given already by Dan using what happened today, okay? So the pressure from people who are being taught the right thing would cause them to call out people who are not demonstrating what they have been taught to be the right thing. If you teach a child that it's not good to steal, when he sees an elder, a teacher, or somebody stealing, he said that, but that is not for you, it's stealing and it's not good. That is a child. But that is what I believe is going to happen. When the young ones have begun to know what is right and what is expected, so far as you call yourself a leader, they're going to call out people who are not doing the right things. They're going to call out political regimes. They're going to call government out on things they are doing. And I believe that what happened this morning, if action hadn't been taken, there could have been enough pressure from the masses to force such a person to be to leave office. And so, yes, even if we are keeping it to the fresh entrance, and also the middle level management, with time, that crop of people would be able to put enough pressure on those at the top to either change their ways or eliminate people who are not living to expectation. They are living up to the task. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Papa, before I go off, let me apologize to who actually was offended. I don't think I meant to say that people who had second class were bad people, not at all. It's just that we have a certain cutoff that we are working to. And so don't be offended. There are brilliant people who don't, maybe, exams don't favor them and all that. So please, don't be offended at all.
It's all right, Mr. Kofi. Yes, Rosie Finn, sorry. There's a question here that I think maybe you should take a stab at. Developing leaders has obvious benefits. However, most young people are indifferent or rather don't care. How can we change that carefree mindset?
I think that's actually a really good question. And two things come to mind, right? So if we're looking at this from a corporate setting, I think what gets tracked, evaluated, and rewarded gets improved, right? So a lot of the time, what we see in corporates today is that people are evaluated, and performance management systems is mostly around the technical skills. You know, you're in IT, so it's about what you're doing with IT. We don't look at a lot of these soft skills as part of the formal evaluation process and the rewards system in a lot of these companies. And I think that's actually key. If you want holistic individuals who are going to take on leadership roles in your organization, a percentage of the reward system should be around some of these soft skills. So, you know, the things the person does to, inspire and to push the organization. These are things that you can actually calibrate some way. And it could be, for example, a peer review. But in a nutshell, the point is, let's find ways in our organizations to actually reward people for some of these leadership attributes that we want to see, and not just 100% on their technical skills or contributions. And if you do that, I think that will have an impact on a lot of these young people who, you know, might not necessarily have the desire to become leaders. And I think a second thing that organizations can do as well is to have formalized mentorship and coaching programs for, you know, the young people in the company. So in my organization today, one of the things we are putting together is partnering the new entrants to the national service and some of the freshers out of school who we bring in, partnering them with senior management so that they can help them hone some of these skills. These kids are smart and they'll pick up, you know, the finance, and they'll pick up the marketing. They'll get that part, but the soft skills and the ability to work well in a team, building those leadership skills, that's not something that may necessarily come naturally to them. And so by having formalized HR oriented programs that helps to coach and mentor these young ones coming into the organization, I think we'll start to incur a lot of those leadership attributes. But as I think it was Moses who mentioned this earlier, you know, it starts with the youth even from school. It starts with our primary schools and secondary schools. It starts with them having debate teams and them, you know, having the ability to speak up, as I mentioned earlier. So all of these things we've talked about with regards to getting the youth on board much earlier, and, you know, bringing them up with leadership skills much earlier in their lives, in primary schools, in secondary schools, I think is key. By the time they get to, you know, the work field, it's not like it's too late, but it's harder to change somebody whose mind is made up. But, you know, the points I've made actually will hopefully help us to change even at that point. But we really need to get these kids more vocal and get them to develop these leadership skills much earlier in their lives.
Thank you very much for that. We have about 9 minutes left, so I want to start wrapping up. Unfortunately, I can't take any more questions. So for each of the panelists, in a minute to two, this is the maiden event of a 12-part series for the season 1 of the Ghana Toastmasters Leadership Dialogues. And I want to believe that it was very successful. We've learned a lot, we've gained a lot, we've gleaned a lot from you. But now I want your advice. So in 1 to 2 minutes, how do we strategically position this webinar so we can get the most value and we can cause the most change? And you can go in any order. So it's sort of your summary point, your closing point, but yes, advise us in what strategy or which direction we should take these series.
If I might come in, I think the first thing is your choice of panelists, and this is the first one. I would like to believe that the next one you will also look at other representative blocks of either society or the economy, and then reconstitute it as such to ensure that people come to the table with diverse experience. Maybe probably today most of us are from the service industry. It will also be interesting to look at other aspects, and in particular the whole idea of COVID-19. But for COVID-19, I'm sure that today would have been having this session in an auditorium somewhere. But this is where we stand. This is what we've done. So for you to be more relevant, I think that you need to look at this whole role of the new normal, where we now are going to see service delivery or product delivery through various forms. Restaurants today have been having to take a second look at whatever they have and say, do I do probably a sit-in model or a takeaway model? I think that other businesses will have the same questions around them. So it's up to you to look at what are the factors that will drive the main things that we're going to do in the economy going forward. And obviously service is key, but you need to pay a bit of attention to digital. But in the midst of all that, the key takeaway for me is that leadership runs from the top, permeates through the organization downwards. And most of the time, we miss out on the middle. because some of the questions that have come on the Q&A session show that how do we identify people right from the ground or right from the lower levels of an organization to see who moves to the middle and who moves up. Obviously, in large organizations, given the number of people, it will be difficult to pay attention to individuals. But then we rely on everybody who is manning his own unit to be the one to pick out who that person is. So the first attribute for us is to ensure that the people in charge of those units or departments have the right skills, have the right leadership, right approach to leadership. And they themselves should be able to recognize talent when they see it at that level. If we miss out, then it will only be through chance encounters with people at the lower level that will be able to pick up. And I link it to the question where somebody was not too happy that Moses said second class lower. But in an environment like this, where you have large numbers of people pushing towards the same exit, then you are forced to come up with criteria to be able to select who goes through. And in doing that, we may miss out on some excellent people, partly because of the process that we have in place. So that middle is key, and we need to spend a bit more time working on that middle, giving them the right skills, giving them the right approach, to be able to determine or sift, let's say, good people from right from the, and then that comes into the middle, that will then develop into a pyramidal shape to go up. So we are in an era where change is key. Change will continue to dominate, and we should all be clear that we need to adapt. We need to be resilient if we are going to face tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And on what you started with the different sectors, we actually plan on the next sector to engage people who work with the mind and the role of the mind in leadership, which is going to happen on the first Friday of August. And then in September, we have also a very interesting segment. We're going to be engaging with creatives. So movie producers, writers, in what role they have to play in leading, in being leaders and leading the dynamic around the art industry. So those would also be very interesting. Who's going next?
Just to buttress on that point, Papa, I think you've hit the nail right on the head, because what you want to be sure of is that this doesn't get monotonous, right? You want to be able to keep people engaged. And if it's something that's going to happen on a monthly basis, the variety will be key. So I'm glad to hear that you're going to focus on different panelists, different industries. And potentially one thing you can also look at is maybe in some of the panels having a specific case study that is relevant at that point that, you know, people can actually see before time and discuss. So there's, you know, twisting it up and finding different ways, you know, to keep it fresh, to keep it engaging, I think will be absolutely key. But I think, at least in this framework, it's worked quite well. And, you know, just to summarize, you know, when we're thinking about leadership culture in Ghana, I think we've talked about a lot of very, very, very key things. One last point I want to make, you know, to a lot of the people who are listening to today, as leaders, one of the things we forget to do a lot is to take care of ourselves. A lot of the time we're focused on our organizations, we're focused on our employees. In the public sector, you're focused on all of your people that you're working with, and we completely forget to take care of our own physical and mental health. And especially in this era, we've seen how that can become such a huge problem. And so, you know, just one piece of advice I'd like to leave, and one thought that I'd like people to take away is how they continue as leaders to make sure that they put themselves first sometimes and take care of their own physical and mental health. I do that by running and making sure that I can get a jog in the morning. Whatever it is for you that helps you stay fit, you know, physically and mentally, please make sure that you take a lot of importance, you give a lot of importance to that. Otherwise, you will not be in the right frame of mind to efficiently lead your team and move them forward. So that was, you know, the last piece of nuggets I wanted to leave.
We call that self-management, and it falls a lot in emotional intelligence. And also, I think our guys for next month will delve a lot into that. So thank you for that. And I hope you tune in next month when we're doing this.
Absolutely.
Let me
next
take
person.
It from
Okay.
There. Let me take it from there. And maybe one interesting thing, and one of the topical things we heard, you know, in the past few days is make sure people go on leave and take a rest. that's absolutely critical. And so, leaders, and I agree with you, Rosie, if you don't take care of yourself in this kind of environment, you're not sure to be able to lead properly. But I'd say that Toastmasters, you have a great opportunity. I mean, and as Dan said, this is a new times, and actually you can feel probably have a lot more participants on this platform than you probably have in any auditorium at any time. So maybe I think one of the things that you should do well is to publicize this, dialogue that you're going to have, the leadership dialogue. I don't think it was very well publicized, and maybe next time around we could, do a little better. Even from the public sector, we could, run it out such that people will be able to also participate. I think that's one of the key things, having the exposure to hear from other people what happens and what can happen and what the possibilities are for growth in leadership. And I believe that, this series could really be help to facilitate and get things moving. I'm looking at it from the public sector, and I believe that, if we could publicize this for you, this could go a long way to start, sowing the seeds of change that we can have in the public sector. So this is my take on that. I think you need to, in addition to all that Dan and Rosie have said in terms of the wide scope of panelists that you could have to bring some more opportunities for people to listen to and to grow in this area.
Thank you very much. And I'll probably be getting in touch with you regarding the publicity. You're absolutely right. My 12 years experience in the public sector, one of the things that I kept noticing was the level of stress. And, it's today one colleague is dying, tomorrow it's another thing. I mean, it can get very, very stressful, which is what a lot of people don't know. A lot of people actually think, oh, the public sector is really easy and this, but there are a couple of people who really get stressed out, and you'd be amazed how many people, have issues. So I think that the next month's one will be very relevant, and I'm hoping that we can get a lot of public servants to join and benefit from the engagement around wellness, around emotional intelligence, around NLPs, and around we have a neurologist who will be joining us as well. So, Mr. Kofi, thank you, Mr. Brock. Yes.
I'd like to reinforce the point Mr. Brock made about marketing it a lot more vigorously, okay, so that the desired impact and reach would be achieved. Because I guess this is not being done for the sake of it being done, but it's being done to actually make impact, to communicate, to solve problems. And also, the second thing I'd like to touch on is that at the beginning, we said that if we want to create or build a culture of leadership in Ghana, there are different audiences that we would have to deal with. We have the youth, we have the middle-aged, and then we have the adults. Now, I would want to liken the middle-aged to those Dan described as the line managers, departmental heads, and supervisors, and so on. They are definitely a very important part of this, because the younger ones take a lot from them. Most young people become like their boss. All right, and so it's important also to direct some of these dialogues towards addressing their challenges, their deficiencies, and so on, so that through those targets, definite target-oriented conversations, they would leave with some lessons that they can go and apply on the job. I mean, when they go away, and especially if we bring along panelists who would be demonstrating practical experience and examples and case studies, like somebody else has mentioned. So it's important that we actually try and make it sector focused, so that people can benefit and take away from it. I find it very interesting that you're bringing in the entertainment and creative people, okay? And I'll be looking out for that, because I sometimes wonder whether the media and other creative players and so on are mindful of the impact they have on our society, and therefore the content of what they bring out. And sometimes I cringe when I hear some of their work, okay? Only, I think sometime this week, a radio station actually did a program at prime time, like 7 p.m., teaching people about seductive marketing, where you use what you have to get what you want, and so on. Now, I sometimes wonder whether they are really mindful of what the content of whatever they do on the people who are listening in. And so I find that a very interesting and useful segment, all right, where we actually challenge these players to ensure that they help in building the leadership culture in Ghana the right way. All right, something we can be proud of, that we can be associated with as a people, right? Yeah, so these are the two things I would like to talk about. And I want to say this is a great initiative, and congrats for actually starting this.
Thank you very much. Our next program is going to be on the 7th of August. It's the same link to register attendance, sorry. So you can go ahead, go back to the link and choose that date, which is on the 7th of August. And we're going to be sharing the promotions with you as we go along. Share the experience with your friends, your family, everybody else you know. Share the promotional materials that we'll send to you. And remember, if change is going to happen, it starts with us. It starts with us engaging. It starts with us sharing. It starts with us moving forward. You can also check out our website, GhanaToastmasters.org, for any information about Ghana Toastmasters. Or you can reach out to us if you want us to come and help set up a chapter in your organization, or you want us to come and do some training for you. We'll be more than happy to do that. Thank you very much, panelists.
Hello, Papa. Can I add, just as part of the marketing bit, if you can also explore the possibility of streaming live or recording so that people can watch sometimes at the.
This is actually being recorded, and so it will be shared with the people who have registered. So please make sure you register. Make sure you register for the next one, and we're going to share this with you. We'll probably upload it to YouTube, but moving forward is going to be going straight to YouTube anyway, so you'll always have access to it. We want this to go as far as possible, and we want to make change in our great motherland. Thank you so much, panelists. Thank you for your time. I know if I was paying for your time, I couldn't afford it. So God bless you all. And one day, may we all live to enjoy the fruits of a Ghana with a leadership culture. My name is Papa Arkest. I've been your moderator, and I'm going to be in this seat for a while. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. Rosie, Dan.
Thanks.
Wonderful.